Last time in this story, I talked about how change is coming. Today, we will talk about how change is actually here. This is the Lenovo Legion Go S. And I mean, man, our video on this thing exploded. But today, something fun has happened with that device. A price hike. Daniel Ahmad caught on to this, and here's the damage. This device was announced at $499. Then pre-orders opened at $549 in March, and according to Daniel, who's an analyst who is focused on Asia, so this would be very well within his wheelhouse, the, quote, reciprocal tariffs make it, quote, very likely that price will increase. Who knows, maybe it could be $599. But in a way, whether it will, whether it won't, or how much the price hike could even be, that is almost the point. Us not knowing is almost the point, because that in itself is impacting the market. Price increases are actually happening, but it's not just for high-end devices, and it's not only for America. Today, you'll learn everything that's going on. I've also got a truly novel experience to share. It's Boot Dev who have sponsored today's video. You see, there you can learn the coding, engineering, and career skills to break into back-end web development. It's like an average salary of 100 grand, work from home, and a lot of really sick stuff, but with quite the twist because their founder is a massive gamer, and that's why Boot is different. It's an RPG. Quests, levels, XP, boss battles, real-time leaderboards, and an active Discord community, almost, I guess, like having your programmer MMO guild. It's really cool. And when you're learning a new skill, that kind of thing matters. And the skills you'll be learning are back-end web development using Python and Go across a wealth of content that cover the fundamentals and even deeper learning topics like really getting into algorithms, which, by the way, is real fun. You'll build projects for your portfolio, and you'll dodge two massive problems. One, tutorial hell. You know, where you just bounce from place to place randomly in the internet without a cohesive path. And two, get rich quick style bootcamp hell. Because Boot is actually realistic. It's got the sauce. You can see that through their UI, their vibes, how they've structured everything, and they're just plain better than the rest. And you can find that out for yourself with 25% off your first purchase at boot.dev/Bellular News. It's no risk. You can browse their content, do demos, and a lot more for free. And when you do buy, it's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, so to get things started, I'll use the Legion Go S as our product example. When it was announced in January, there were 10% import tariffs against Chinese imports to the US. That basically meant that for every device imported, a 10% fee had to be paid. Now, to be clear, that 10% is not on your final retail price, it's on the price to import the thing. Though here, what we did see is a $50 price increase after those tariffs increased to 20%. So, 20% tariff led to a $50 price hike. Let's keep that ratio in mind and then apply it to the current tariff regime on non-medical products from China, which is 145%. If that ratio was to hold, you would be looking at a $1,225 increase on any Lenovo Legion Go S that is imported now. Will that price hike happen? I think no, absolutely not. I mean, that price hike would literally kill the product. I think they would sooner just redirect stock to other markets or take a bit of a cut to their margin. It's hard to say, and from the government's end, it's also hard to say. I mean, as I record this, consoles, accessories, and merchandise are subject to the full tariff. Now, PCs and smartphones are technically exempt, but they might end up falling under any new semiconductor tariffs. But really, it is anyone's guess. And if you're going outside of China, well, for anyone else, there's a 90-day 10% tariff, and again after that, it's anyone's guess. Who knows where they will go for various different countries. And that is the real point. Uncertainty is bad for business. That hits everyone, and that includes today's second and third targets, Nintendo and Razer. Nintendo have been hit, but they have had some good news. They can now import the Vietnamese-built consoles under the 10% rating, not the 46% that they feared. And with that happening, pre-orders are actually now back, and Nintendo have chose to eat the 10% tariff on their console margin, but not on accessories. The accessories have went up $5 to $10. So that's Nintendo, but obviously it's not only Nintendo. Razer have pulled Blade 16 pre-orders from the US market. Now its RRP has been $4,500. I can imagine with its pretty high input costs that the tariffs would be flipping brutal. And then there's Framework. Now, Framework's whole shtick is making consumer-friendly, open, and repairable machines. They do really cool stuff. And with a brand like that, being candid is very advantageous. It's perfectly on message, so they did share a little bit more. Here's what they said. We priced our laptops when tariffs and imports from Taiwan were 0%. At a 10% tariff, we would have to sell the lowest SKUs at a loss. other consumer goods makers have performed the same calculations and taken the same actions, though most have not been open about it. Yes, so they're implying that there's a lot of impact here. It's just the sort of impact that we're not really seeing because it's not being publicized. If a product that was going to go on sale is just pulled from sale, but you never knew about it, then guess what? You don't know about it. Now, of course, whenever the Taiwanese imports fell to 10%, Framework were able to restore some product, but not all, because some systems have got parts that are made in China. So expect to see more of this. Right now, if you're in the US, you're being shielded because there are existing stockpiles that are already in the country, and then loads of companies have done rush orders. What that means is you are going to feel the impact much more on newer products. I mean, take one example, the NVIDIA 5060 cards. We've yet to see how that will fully play out. Now, NVIDIA told PC Gamer, quote, "There's not a whole lot we can do about tariffs, and that they will work with their partners to get these out at a reasonable price, which we are doing." Which, is fair, that's well and good. But the end results are always going to be raised prices from where they could be. That much is obvious because a market inefficiency has been introduced. There is no way that you are going to escape that because, that's kind of how markets work. Now, if you thought that you could avoid all of this by being outside the US, good news. You can think again. PlayStation just hiked prices in much of the world, so digital consoles cost £40 and €50 more in the UK and EU, and both editions are up again in Australia and New Zealand. They're up 80 and 130 Aussie dollars and 150 and 210 Kiwi dollars, which is pretty bloody rough. And per Sony, this is because of a, quote, challenging economic environment, including high inflation and fluctuating exchange rates. Which, to be fair to them, is kind of true. Basically, a weak yen and inflation across the manufacturing process combined with already razor-thin margins. And we know, but we can also infer that those margins are razor-thin, because this is a console generation that has seen far less deep discounting than the previous console gen. We are just not seeing the deals that we saw with the Xbox One and the PS4. I mean, it's actually been the opposite. 2022 saw a £30 and €50 increase for UK and Europe. And certainly I do think, at least with Sony though, Xbox's weakness has all but killed any appetite that PlayStation would have for sacrificing margin to gain market share. Because, they already have all that market share. Microsoft flubbed it. But you've probably noticed something though. All those price increases are outside of America. Yes, they're not US price hikes. You might be wondering how. You might be wondering why. Well, the inflation argument is likely true, but PlayStation, you have to remember, are working within a global market. It's not like America will just be its own little bubble. Sony can effectively subsidize the potential tariff increases in one territory by closing currency conversion gaps in other territories. And that's especially relevant in a world of region-free consoles, which of course is the world that Sony are operating in. If currencies are in your favor, you can just import a console and save a shitload of money. And I'm really not making this up. The Switch 2 is actually amazing proof of this. Japan's much discounted Switch 2 is a region-locked model. It's 49,980 yen, and that price is actually sticker shocking Japanese consumers, even though at the time it equated out to $330, which is a lot less than the Switch 2 base price in the US, though that $330 is now more like $350 because the US dollar has, of course, relatively weakened in that currency pair. Anyway, there is another factor with the PS5. That factor is timing. PS5 has only just begun to outpace the relative PS4 sales, but something's about to happen, and that something is called GTA 6. So if there ever was a time to lock in your prices that include a decent margin, it is now, before GTA. And as both the Switch 2 and the PS5 show, it's not just a US thing. I know a lot of us are PC gamers here, so let's take a step back. Say you don't want new hardware and you're not planning on buying physical games. I mean, there's no tariffs on Steam, so surely we're golden, we're fine, right? No, absolutely not. There's a expectancy, number one, of some form of global recession from all of the uncertainty and the trade changes. That means less funding for all developers, especially indies. That means fewer games, and it means fewer games that are different. By different, I mean new IP, unproven ideas, And I have first-person accounts of this from people I know who went to this year's GDC to do business, saw all the different publishers. And I can add to that, of course, the wealth of devs, publishers, and analysts who are reporting on this as well. That is happening. There is less money on all sides, and that does include margin-friendly nice-to-haves, or maybe things that would be used to creep up the margin a bit. I mean, where is merchandise made? Where are collector's editions made? You've got a global economy that is built on exploiting the cheap industrial capacity of Southeast Asian nations. And I mean, beyond merch, consider card games and board games. Helldivers has a board game. Riot has got a card game. Those will be massively impacted because almost all board games are made in China. Trust me, I actually looked into making board games in UK and US. Holy shit, it is expensive. Like, so expensive that people would literally just not buy the box set. And I mean, we all know how expensive board games can be as it is, even with those economies of scale. So it's pretty rough. And of course, if some manufacturing capacity was to appear or to increase in, say, US and UK, well, the incumbents would be the people able to eat up all of that capacity, making it vastly harder for newcomers to enter and disrupt that market. So what's going to happen? Will the price of collector's editions go up? I mean, in a way, I'd say yes. In another way, I'd say no, not just that. Collector's editions don't exist in a bubble. They've got a purpose, right? They are high margin in order to increase the overall margin of the product line. But there's only so much demand elasticity. If you keep on just passing all those prices to the consumer, you'll eventually get to the stage where it's now too niche of a product. A business will still want to optimize their average sale price. They'll still want to do everything they can to get revenue up. That is, after all, the purpose of a collector's edition. And so if we move into an environment where the unit economics just don't support things like collector's editions, then we can expect to see digital price increases, more advanced access things, more cosmetics. Indeed, we're already seeing funky stuff between digital and physical pricing. But with all this, if there's one thing that I would just personally implore you to think about the most out of anything I have said, expect the vast majority of these changes to happen silently without your overt knowledge. We will not know what price a new game would have been in another timeline, so we cannot run that comparison. We only have the timeline that we've got. We only have the market that we have got. And that means that things could have went in a different way and better way with, say, some game pricing and some business model stuff, but we will never know that because the market that would have allowed for that is not the market that we have. It's the kind of thing we're looking at the state of the industry. Well, with physical products becoming a less reliable revenue source, digital will be the comparatively more reliable one. That's where, of course, investment will go, because reliability is good in business. And what will that do? That will accelerate many of the trends that this channel grapples with. Be that your advanced early access, all the fun forms of price laddering and upsells, etc., advertisements in games, those are the things that will increase and increase and increase as the unit economics gets worse from just selling a game, selling merch for a game, or hardware. That slack will need to be picked up somewhere else. Expect it to be ads, expect it to be business model, expect it to be prices. And perhaps most of all, for the strategic mega minds in gaming, expect more user-generated content. Whenever I say that, what do you think of? You think of Fortnite, you think of Roblox, maybe Minecraft. Well, think about mods, because the role of mods is changing. And you can learn about that in the next video.